Hey guys, and welcome back to my podcast. Yes, so today is episode 13 and we are on to business English. A very, very strict of business English from episode 13 to 30. So today we're just going to begin some intros, to understand what business English is. I'm going to also look at key features, of business English. Now, it's really important that you understand what business English is and the key features that it has, because it's very different from the normal way of, speaking or your conversational way of speaking every day. But you can learn this, you can master it so that you find yourself in a business setting, you find yourself in a meeting, you find yourself with colleagues, your boss, with, in a conference. You will not make a total wreck of opportunities that are presented to you. I like to make reference to a TV series that I watch, not like a series, but it's like a program, an entrepreneur program on TV, mostly on YouTube. I watch it, and it's called Dragon's Den. And what Dragon's Den is all about, it is a platform where aspiring entrepreneurs have one chance to make their dreams come true when they pitch their business ideas to 5 multi-millionaires. So if one is not competent in business English and you go on somewhere like Dragon's Den, for Nigerians we have what we call the Lion's Den. It's like the same entrepreneurial program, entrepreneurs versus investors and the whole pitching thing. And then in America there is one, I've forgotten the name. What's the name now? Can't really remember, but it has a den at the end. But I know British TV has Dragon's Den, Nigerian TV has Lion's Den, but I can't remember American's own, but it's fine. So in that kind of situation, you need knowledge. You are often required to have knowledge of specific jargons. Now, jargons are words or phrases that you only use in certain situations. Business English has its own jargon, which is usually just the more formal and polite version of casual English. Now, in the Dragons Den, you'd hear words like partnership, you hear words like investment, you hear words like profitability and revenue. Now, all these words are important, and you most likely will not find it in normal day English or speaking with your friends. Just imagine I am your friend, and every time we have a conversation, I say things like, how's your investment going? What about the partnership? What's your revenue this month? You're like, are you my financial manager or something? Really, that's going to be really weird, except maybe times when you talk about business. But in very appropriate situations, like in meetings, in conferences, you are required to speak properly, and that is where business English comes in. Business English is different from the normal English of everyday life because it is used in an official or business setting, and it has an aim. I think this is really important because I've experienced people who want to learn how to speak business English, or let me put it this way, they want to learn how to speak English better just to sound more intelligent. So they want to learn big words, they want to sound super intelligent. But I will hate to break it to you right now, using big words, using bogus vocabulary does not make you sound smarter. Sorry. What is the measurement of smartness? According to my understanding, the measurement of smartness is how well you're able to communicate with people and how well they're able to understand you and give you the desired feedback. I think that is really important. So you can be all bogus in your vocabulary and you can sound all advanced and all smart. But if the people you're talking to do not understand you, and if you're sounding like an old professor and your audience is just staring at you like, what's she saying? I don't really understand. Then the hard truth is you failed in communicating, or you failed in communication, because communication has a role, he has a goal, and that is to let your audience understand you. Now, I have a communications background. I studied communications in university, and there is something we call fidelity of communication, and it is the process whereby you communicate with people and they understand you and give you the desired feedback. So if you are communicating and just, bringing it all out and pouring it all out, and your audience, they just stare at you and I don't grab, then you're failed, because there will be no fidelity of communication. The demand for effective business communication is on an all-time rise, as there is need to speak in relation to business dealings. So today we're going to look at key characteristics of business English, and this is aimed at helping you understand it better. Number 1, business English is used internationally. English has become the language of the international workplace, and this means that once you master business English, you can use it to communicate with most professionals in any part of the world. So it can connect you to everyone else. For example, if you're based in Nigeria like I am, and your client is from, let's say, the United Kingdom, your shared knowledge of business English allows you to communicate and negotiate a deal. So that is like a given. However, it is important to be aware that just knowing business English is no guarantee of success in business. It is important to be aware that knowing business English is only one part of international business. So it is no guarantee that you're going to close that deal or, bring on the richest clients in the world, because you have to also have people skills, negotiation skills, to mention but a few. But having the right business English and knowing how to communicate well is like a thumbs up, is like the first step in the right direction. The second thing I would like you to understand is that business English is generally short and specific. It is common knowledge that everyone in business today is busy. I'm a busy person. You might be the CEO of your company, you might be a manager, you might be a sales manager or someone. No matter your position, there is a level of business that you would have. Some have more, some have less, but it's there. So this means that great care should be taken when speaking to ensure that your communication is very clear, short and specific, and as straight to the point as possible. Nobody has time to start reading very long letters of request and all that. I would like to tell a story of a dear man who had an opportunity. So he walked into a mall and met the richest man in the world. And the man asked him, "What do you want me to do for you?" So just imagine that this dear man had no business skills or no business communication skills at his disposal. He just mess up the whole thing and just, leave there with nothing. But he was wise enough and smart enough to make use of the opportunity and communicate well with this richest man in the world and get deals. So that's what business English can do for you. It's very short and specific. So communication in business ought to happen in an effective way to make it worth everyone's time. I've watched movies that, maybe it's like a pitch kind of thing, an elevator speech, and you're asked to pitch for your company. And if you do not know how to speak well, if you've not grabbed properly business English, you're going to make a mess of the whole situation, yeah? And that is not good at all. Okay, so let's go. So number 3 is this. In business English, you should speak in a professional and diplomatic manner. Now, I have a 2-part episode on how you can develop your diplomatic communication, and so you can check it out. And also, my podcast is on platforms like Apple Podcasts, on Google Podcasts, and on Spotify, so you can check it out. It's a 2-part episode on how to develop a diplomatic communication so that you don't screw up very important opportunities, because believe you me, some opportunities just present themselves once, and once you've screwed it up, that is it. So it is important to remember that you're trying to build professional relationships with the people you speak to, and there are 3 things you should keep in mind when you are speaking in a professional and diplomatic manner. Number 1, do not be too casual. Now, you might find yourself, slipping into the colloquial, everyday English occasionally, especially if you're comfortable with the people you're talking to. But you have to control it in a business setting. So you can be friendly, but slangs or expletives or swear words or very casual slangs like yo, like what's up, like if it's in a Nigerian setting, like guy, I'll find out. Those kind of things are not allowed in a business setting. Yeah, so for instance, if you are in a business meeting and you meet a friend, you can say, hello, how do you? Or hello, how are you? And then you don't say, hey, what's up, yo? The second thing is that business English requires you to maintain a professional front. This means that you should be polite, considerate, and respectful to everyone you speak with, and polite manners would help you to stand out in a good way. Also, during job interviews, being respectful will show that you deserve to be hired, and during office disagreements, you will benefit from remaining diplomatic and mature. Now, the last thing you can do to ensure that you have a professional and diplomatic front, or you remain professional and diplomatic, especially in a business setting, is lastly, you want to avoid coming across as blunt and tactless. This is a huge one because many people do not know how to communicate bad news or give feedback. You want to avoid coming across as blunt or tactless. You can't just blurt out every thought that comes to mind. Now, in this situation, you can use the sandwich rule, and this is really important, particularly if the feedback you're giving is negative. This is what you can do. You start off by saying something positive and then point out the negative aspect and how it can be improved, and then finish off with another positive point. Maintaining diplomatic manner while using business English will show others that you not only understand the language but are aware of the professional culture too. For example, let's practice a little bit the sandwich rule. You are an interviewer in an interview, and someone comes in for an interview, and the person dresses really raggedy and does not dress well as per interview standard or office standard. So if I want to use the sandwich rule to communicate that, mate, you've dressed wrongly or you've dressed in a way that is not appropriate, I can say, okay, so I can say, now I'm talking to this person who came for the interview, I can say, hello, you look smashing today. That would be a lie, so you don't look smashing. I'm trying to figure it out here, right on my mic. You can say, I really love your hairdo today. However, your dressing is not appropriate, and I would appreciate it if you would improve on it next time when coming for an interview. Thank you so much for being punctual. I noticed that you were one of the first persons that came here. You've communicated that the person's dressing is not good enough. However, you've complimented, the person's hairdo, and you've complimented the punctuality. That is such a great rule to use when communicating. Okay, so number 4, business English is really about how you can communicate. Now, this is really, really important. How many important have I said? I've said many. Well, this is really important. Now, it's not really about how well you know the English language. Now, this might come as a shocker to you because business English is not about how the boss your vocabulary is or how many big words you make use of. I said that in the beginning of this podcast. Now, what it aims at is ensuring that the other party in the communication understands you and gives you the expected feedback. Simply fidelity of communication. So, using business English doesn't mean you have to show off your knowledge or your fancy vocabulary. No, it means knowing when and how to apply your English knowledge. So you might not know all the right words to use, really, but if you can get your point across clearly and briefly, you have a higher chance of being successful than someone who just, uses all the big words. One crazy thing about this is you might go to an interview and you're asked a question, a very simple question, where do you live, or how do you think you can move the company forward? And then you start splashing your verbose vocabulary all over the place. Chances are that the people listening to you will just zone out and just be staring at you because they are trying to understand you and they are bearing the process all through. It's more like we're enduring what you're saying. We can't get a word out of what you're saying, but we're enduring it. So just do and finish. And that is not good. So when you are using business English or speaking in a business setting, You have to remain solution focused and think on your feet. It's about, communicating your thoughts to the other party. It's about clear communication. It's about being specific. It's about being exact and not about being fancy with your vocabulary. Okay, guys, so thank you so much for listening today. We've looked at the key features of business English and how that is used in an official setting. We looked at business English, how that is used internationally, how that you have to be generally short and specific, how that you have to speak in a professional and diplomatic manner. It's not about how to sound expert or sound advanced. It's about how well you can communicate and close the business deal. Yes! So we've come to the end of episode 13, and in episode 14, we're going to start picking specific areas of career, or careers to look at vocabulary, look at business English that is used in those areas to help you communicate well. Now, peradventure, you're listening to me and you're like, you know what, Ruth? My business English is totally zero. That's why this podcast is for you, to help you improve on your vocabulary. You cannot master everything in one day. You can't master everything in one day. So in order to ace business English, you would need to practice many times. You can find a practice partner. You can attend networking events or ask for responsibility at your job to give yourself motivation, but it's one step at a time. And I'd like you to join me on this wonderful journey. Also, we're going to pick specific vocabulary or in specific fields like public relations, like advertisements, like project management, IT, customer service, and the list is endless, and look at vocabularies that are used in those areas and how to communicate as a business personnel in those specific career parts. So thank you so much for listening, and I will see you in my next podcast episode. Bye, guys.